Welcome as we celebrate Easter and the good news that it is for all of us that Jesus has risen from the dead. Today we have a very special opportunity and privilege. Dr. John Burnside, one of our parishioners, is here with us today. He's a child psychiatrist, and he and his wife Lisa have been members of our parish for many years. He's involved in the choir, has been for 18 years, and is a guitarist and sings along. They're involved in Bible studies and many other things. And so I want to welcome you here this morning as we come together to share in this unique way.
Thank you, Father.
As a pastor, one of my concerns always is that parents and families are a focus and foundation of our community. And my concern is how families are really processing, thinking through, and handling this pandemic that we're in. And so Dr. Burnside is going to bring us some insight today as we discuss. And I'd like for him to share a little bit about his profession and his focus in his work.
Oh, okay. Well, Father, it's true. I'm a medical doctor. My specialty is child psychiatry. I've been in private practice for over 30 years. Probably had a chance to treat well over 10,000 kids and families. I love what I do, and I also love being part of this parish. We've been members for 30 years, so excited to be here and help in any way that I can, of course.
Thank you. It's wonderful that you are willing to do this to assist families as they go through this difficult time together.
It's hard to turn down a priest when they ask you for something, Father. Never been good at that.
Thank you. I want to tell two very short stories, and I'll allow Dr. Burnside to comment about them. The first one is that when I was growing up, a young child around age 10, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I can remember how in our Catholic school where I went, the nuns were so proud of the fact that John F. Kennedy was elected president as the Catholic, and this was instilled into us, and then all of a sudden the Cuban Missile Crisis happens. And there are things I remember very vividly about it. For example, the nuns were teaching us to crawl under our desks to hide and to shelter there and protect ourselves, as if that would help really in a nuclear attack. Many other things that we did as well, including, I don't remember my parents talking openly with us about this. We kind of fended for ourselves, saw their children's responses to the concern. But also, as we sheltered under our desk in exercises that they did when they'd ring the bell in the middle of a class to do that, everybody responded differently. But also, what was a part of this is the kind of emotional response as children that we had to it, and not knowing how to deal with it. I also remember that every night we would pray the rosary on our knees around our family living room. And I remember hearing a lot about communism and socialism and how terrible these things were. We were praying for an end to the Soviet Union at that time and all these kind of things. And I guess I was in my imagination waiting for commies to break into our front door and to do something harmful to us. And so I was wondering, in light of the pandemic and how children might be reacting to that, as I reacted to my childhood, what is your feedback?
I love that story because it's a great example of what not to do.
Okay.
If you think back, you have kids under the desk and you're praying incessantly. Praying's good. Praying incessantly, not so good. What you have is you unknowingly stir up a lot of anxiety in your kids. At that time, at your age, and you were probably 6, 7, 8, somewhere around there.
I was 10 years old at that time. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What you needed was a sense of normalcy.
Right.
And reassurance, which is what kids need now. Life needs to seem normal to them, and they need to be reassured that they're okay. That's what you needed. That's what you didn't get.
Okay. And the second story that I want to tell is very short. I was reading the Wall Street Journal the other day, and there was a very short article about a family, and the little boy declared to his mother, "Mommy, I like the coronavirus." And she was a little taken aback by it, and she said, "Well, why is that, honey?" And he said, "Because you're at home more and we get to spend time doing fun things." And what struck me is that everybody perceives this very differently, including children. And again, I don't know what your response is to that story.
I love that story because it speaks to, one, you never know what a kid's going to say, and two, the wisdom of a child. See, that child recognized an opportunity in this crisis, an opportunity to spend more time together. beautiful story. So
Something you may not necessarily expect a child to do, and something
wouldn't
that
wouldn't
even we-
expect it.
Yes, great.
Until you ask them to explain it, it wouldn't make sense to you.
Great, okay. I've been thinking a lot through our meeting and having this interview, and so I came up with some questions that I want to ask and let you just freelance in your answers to them from your professional experience. And we all know that parents really are the stability and foundations in the home, and how they respond and react and raise children, especially in times of crisis like this, is very important. So what do you think is the most important thing for parents as they assist kids of all ages in their home in going through this and doing it in a very healthy way, psychologically and spiritually?
You know, I'm glad to report that all the families I'm working with and kids are doing very well through this. And I think part of that is parents recognize the children follow their lead. So I spend a big part of my professional lifetime encouraging parents to become healthier. And interestingly, when moms get under stress in particular, they tend to focus on the kids, and sometimes they don't focus enough on their own health. So I have something that over my lifetime I call grandma's rules.
Okay.
Now the reason I call it that is they're questions I imagine my grandmother would ask me when I was a little kid. She'd call me Johnny. She'd say, "Johnny, how are you sleeping? How are you eating? Are you getting plenty of exercise? Are you having some fun? And the fifth one is your next vacation scheduled or planned?"
Mm-hmm.
Those are 5 things parents can do to make sure they're healthy.
Great.
Because it's healthy mom, healthy child. So that's what I would emphasize.
And how do dads fit into this whole
Now,
thing?
dads fit in the same way. Dads need to do what they need to do to stay healthy. And for a lot of dads, that's being productive, going to work and earning money and taking care of the kids in a different kind of way than mom does. Hopefully, if a family's lucky that both parents are together, it's much more of a challenge to a single parent family. But if both parents are together, they can do a bit of a tag team.
Okay.
One of the challenges now for dads is most I know, are working from home.
Okay.
And dads don't do well with that. You know, I have my daughter and son-in-law, they have 3 kids, 10 months, 3 years, 5 years. There's a lot of chaos in that home. So he's home in the study trying to do his work. Kids are screaming and yelling, and you know like kids do.
Yeah.
And Haley, my daughter, sees that as just a routine day that drives him a little bit nuts.
Mm-hmm.
So he's challenged with the idea of trying to work from home, be focused, get his work done, and not get pulled into all the chaos that typically happens in a normal day in a family.
That's a great insight.
He's struggling.
So parents are really critical in this whole thing, but we all have support systems and extended families around us. So specifically, who else can be a great help to kids, and especially can grandparents play a critical role in grandchildren's lives right now?
You know, I love this question,
Okay.
Father, because all of us that have the pleasure of being grandparents will tell you that that's a very special time. In some ways, it's more special than raising your own kids. And it's not just because you get to send them home with their parents. It's much more than that. I think grandparents tend to be, we're older, we're wiser, we have more time, we know what's really important, and we're in position to give our grandkids unconditional love. Everybody needs that.
Mm-hmm.
I will give you an example of that. My daughter, her husband, and 3 kids were over just the other day at our house for about an hour, and my 5-year-old grandson tends to have trouble playing independently, and he tends to intrude on the 3-year-old, who, of course, scream and yell, and then he, in his wisdom, the 5-year-old said, "Poppy," calls me Poppy. "Poppy, can we go outside?" "Sure." So we spent the next 45 minutes. He wanted to swing, and then he wanted to, I think we played hide and seek.
Right.
And he's pretty good at hide and seek, actually. He's hard to find. 3, He wanted to play soccer, and we ended up playing basketball, and then it was time to go home. So rather than fuss at him about keeping distance from his little sister, I was able to take him outside and spend some time with him, and I loved it.
Great.
I loved it, he loved it. So yes, grandparents, extended family members can have a huge impact on what's going on right now, really help with this.
That's a wonderful example of how. Now, all of us in our families have routines and habits that we fall into that are unique to our families, and many families are similar in different ways. And right now, the coronavirus is so disruptive to family life in every way. What do you have to say about routines and habits of the home?
As much as you can, going back to the Cuban crisis question you asked earlier, try to keep things just a sense of normal. Kids live in their own world. You know, if most of them, young ones, are going to be oblivious to the idea. They just recognize their home. They're not in daycare or preschool right now.
Right.
And probably the older kids are challenged a little bit more in trying to stay connected with friends. And if you're a senior in high school, it's kind of a sad time, but you're maybe missing out on prom, and graduation's even up in the air. And if you're playing spring baseball, that's out the picture. So, but as much as we can, a sense of keeping things the same and not varying too much is going to set the tone. So set the tone for your family and how you're going to handle this.
Right. As the coronavirus has worn on, one thing I notice is in my neighborhood, I've seen families walking more than ever before. And I was wondering, are there any other kind of activities that you see that are really healthy that families can do that maybe they normally don't do because they don't have as much time together, and that can be helpful for them?
I've noticed the same thing. You know, we live in Fair Oaks. We've lived there for 30 years, and often you'll rarely see families. You might see a couple or a single person out walking. Lately, though, we're seeing families outside riding bicycles, walking together, and so that's something that maybe we'll all learn is what's really important and how we can do more of that stuff. It's kind of been nice to see. I actually saw a mother and son riding bicycles as I was driving over here today.
That's great.
So, yeah.
You mentioned a few things that especially seniors might be really missing at this time and feel let down and disappointed about, like not having a prom or sporting events they can't be involved in, and competitions academically and all of that. What role can this all play in the development and maturity of children and teens, so when they are let down and disappointed, and when things are disrupted and they can't fulfill what they want to?
You know, there are lessons to learn, and seniors in high school are old enough to learn some of the important lessons. For instance, you and I would agree that God answers all prayers.
Right.
Sometimes with a resounding no, and He's always right. Now, the always right part may not seem obvious to a senior in high school, but at my age, 67, looking back, even the times I was very disappointed that I know, when I look back, He was exactly right. So there are lessons to learn, and we can help our kids learn these lessons. Maybe that's why some of these crises occur in our lifetimes, right?
Okay.
So that we can learn and develop some flexibility.
So part of it is what you make of it.
Well, and how parents respond in terms of, well, son, let's talk about this, and let's talk about it, and help the kids develop some flexibility and some resiliency.
Right.
You know, those are two things that define health.
Yes.
Are you flexible?
Yes.
Because life doesn't always go your way.
Right.
And are you resilient? Can you bounce back from disappointment? Important lessons if we take the time to help our kids see that and work through it.
That is really, I think, incredibly important, yes. You know, anxiety and depression run heavy in society as it is among many people, and some of them even have panic attacks and all these kind of things. And I'm wondering, how can you, if maybe you are anxiety prone or depressed already, how can you know when you or a child or someone else in your family needs professional help?
Well, there are some at-risk kids, mostly up to this point, we've been talking about healthy kids and healthy families. Well, you know, I do believe there's a subset of kids that I call them born warriors. Not warriors, but warriors.
Warriors.
Kids
yes.
that from the giddy up, they just always worried. And they have anxiety disorders or they have obsessive compulsive disorder that times like this are going to exacerbate those symptoms. I think that it's usually, parents are pretty intuitive. They usually know in a way when their kids might need help. And I think pediatricians or family docs are a good place to start and see what you can do. No one's expected to have all the answers. And just accepting that sometimes we need help in answering our questions. It might be from our priest. It might be from an older wise person like some of my friends that consult with me, or it might be one of my colleagues, but we all need help. Nobody has all the answers.
Okay. Well, that leads right into my next question, which is, kids can sometimes ask a ton of questions, and sometimes they ask the most shocking questions even. And so what if a child asks a parent about the pandemic and all the ramifications or something else? What if they don't know the answer? What is the best thing for a parent to do in that situation?
Well, let me tell you, what the hardest thing for a medical doctor to say is, I don't know.
Yes.
And watch doctors on TV. They'll get asked a question and they'll talk 10 minutes around the subject when they don't know the answer. And you're trained, you're supposed to know everything. You believe you know, you want to believe you know everything. But really the older doctors, those who are practicing 20 plus years, we've gotten to the point sometimes we can say, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody knows, but we're going to find out. And let's go. It might be to Google, it might be to ask someone else.
Okay.
But parents aren't expected to know all the answers. If a child believes you know everything, they're going to be disappointed when they find out you don't.
Okay.
But that's one thing they need to learn.
Yeah.
And then be okay with it. I don't know. And then maybe we can find out. Ask somebody else.
So that can be a tremendous lesson for them to know that mom and dad don't know everything, but maybe even researching it together, or consulting somebody else in the family or among neighbors that do know, like a psychiatrist living next door, and call Dr. John, right?
Yeah, they could. You know, it's we saw that in Bible study sometimes. Ree, who leads our Bible study, so clever. We would occasionally have a member of the Bible study that would ask a question that's real esoteric and off base and whatever. You know what she would wisely do? That's a wonderful question. Why don't you research it and get back to us next week with the answer?
That's clever.
Oh my gosh. And you know what? It cuts down on those kinds of questions pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's a
Just
wonderful way to put it in a perspective. Yes.
Back in the court. You look it up.
Okay.
It's just ridiculous.
Great. So from a perspective of a psychiatrist, how do you see faith, church involvement, prayer, all of those things as important, healthy things for individuals and families to involve themselves in?
You know, it obviously, and I believe very strongly in that. I mean, we're all part of families, but we're part of neighbors, a neighborhood community, a church, hopefully a church community, and all of those things are very important. I told you earlier today, one of my favorite songs we sing, by the way, I am in choir. I'm third string guitarist. Now, if you notice, there are only two of us. So, does that give you an idea about my guitar skills? Joe does not allow me to sing.
Oh, okay.
He's made it real clear a couple of times. John, you're singing. He doesn't mean sing louder. He means, no, you're singing. Don't sing. So anyway, but one of my favorite songs is Faith, Hope, and Love, and the Greatest Love. That's so important to keep in mind. Faith, hope. You have to create a sense of hope. Right now, even in this crisis, hope that we're going to get through this and we'll be healthier and stronger because of it. And then love is just something that if you're lucky enough to have some people that unconditionally love you, then God has smiled on you. So we know, you and I strongly believe those are very
Great. Now, when I was growing up, there was a show, Art Linkletter, and one of the slogans for that show was that kids can say the darndest things, and that meant in terms of their internal wisdom already at a very young age, and they would also say some of the funniest things. And I can remember watching the show, and even my whole family would just be rolling over laughing at the kind of wisdom and funny things that kids could say, even about very serious things. How can parents use that in the home during a crisis time like this to kind of lower the pressure or tension or anxiety or whatever that may be there and use it to their advantage?
You know, I love that show too. Totally unscripted. You just don't know what a child's going to say. So maybe there's somebody that will see this video that's thinking about going to medical school and being a child psychiatrist. We need more of them.
Yes.
But that's the fun of working with kids. You never know what they're going to say. I will tell you, along those lines, I recently saw a movie. It's, I think it's called A Beautiful Thing in the Neighborhood, but it's
Yes.
Mr. Rogers,
Mr. Rogers,
with,
yeah.
with Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
Watch that as a family. You will, it is such a fabulous, but he was so good at working with kids, and he understood kids so well that's a beautiful movie to see. I would encourage that.
Great recommendation. If parents are trying to figure out how to discuss anything about the crisis and pandemic that we're going through, what is the best advice you could give them about how to open their kids up to talk openly about their feelings, emotions, and just state of mind about this whole thing?
You know, probably since this has been going on a few weeks, parents have already explained what's going on and why we're keeping social distance. And to kids, that'd be pretty obvious. I think when you talk to kids or your children, you always want to be honest and you want to be succinct. Don't give them more information than they need. Parents are sometimes guilty. Obsessive parents try to give too much information and stir up things that kids don't even need to know or want to know. Keep it simple and keep it direct, and then ask if they have any questions.
Okay.
So they may not have. What I'm seeing is most kids are in their own little world and they're adjusting to this just fine.
That's great to hear.
Parents need to, unless you're seeing some problems, you might ask your child, hey, how you handling all this? And if they say, I'm doing fine, and you see that they're doing fine, then leave it alone.
Okay. Great advice. What kind of blessings do you think can come out of this crisis and pandemic?
I bet you have some ideas about this too.
I've already shared a few, and I want to give you the opportunity
I know.
today.
Thank you. You know, I don't even think we can imagine all the blessings that are going to come out of this crisis. I mean, you think about why bad things happen. I think there can be a lot of reasons for that we can come up spiritually. You know, they do have a way of getting us refocused on what's really important. Reprioritizing our lives. How much time do we want to spend with our kids? What do we want to be doing with our kids? Recognizing how healthy our kids are. Do we need to put some more energy into helping them be healthier, more resilient, more flexible? But I do think that all of us will come out of this potentially stronger, healthier, a renewed perspective on what's really important, and as a country, I think we'll come out of it potentially stronger and healthier. Maybe we'll be better prepared for the next pandemic. Maybe we'll make sure we're making our own antibiotics instead of importing them, and other things that will show some wisdom. So there's at least potential to gain a lot of wisdom. What are some of your thoughts in addition to that, Father? I know you're always thinking.
I think that you've crystallized most of the ones that I would focus on. I just think that there's a greater sense of appreciation overall for faith and for church. And the one thing that really has caught me off guard is I thought that when we weren't able to have Mass, that everybody would want to see the Mass in Rome and in the cathedral in Washington, D.C. and all these things. And I said, we don't need to waste our time here at St. Peter's doing Mass and filming it and putting it out on the internet. And once we did start doing it, because my staff said we do need to do it, is that everybody started saying how much they appreciate seeing our church as the place of Mass, and seeing the familiar faces and the voices of our people and all of that. And it really does help me understand how thankful people are for our parish community. And I think there's a greater degree of appreciation for that, and faith and reliance on God, and just being thankful for human life itself. And it's those little, most basic things in life that sometimes we forget, and I think that are most critical and important in a time like this. One of the things that I said in the video that I did as reflections on the pandemic is that we should appreciate our families now more than we ever have appreciated them before, and I truly believe that that's a piece of this whole puzzle, and a part of what's going forward for us.
I certainly think that Lisa and I are missing Mass and attending Mass and seeing friends.
Yes.
And we have enjoyed the daily Masses that you put on. We were watching other Masses, but you're right. We want to see you, and we want to see Rick. We
Right.
want to see Joe with this beautiful voice, and it keeps us connected, just like we need to stay connected with friends.
Yes.
Our Bible study is continued on Fridays through Zoom. It's a comedy trying to get 20 people on the internet and push the right button. That takes about 40 minutes. Rick, I'm sure you can appreciate the challenges, because Rick's come to bail us out a lot of times early on Friday. But it's been fun to continue that, and I give Reed credit for having the energy to a lot of people are, if you can imagine being older, which means older than me, single, and not a lot of family around. It's the sense of connection with them to the community that they were a part of before this.
Yes.
So that's why I think seeing your Mass has been so important to us all.
Thank you. And I really appreciate your taking the time and sharing your expertise in doing this interview today. And I'm sure that this is going to probably create a real response where people maybe have more questions and definitely insights. But my hope is that for all of our parishioners, that it really is wonderful to hear some of these reflections that you're able to give us, and to kind of focus us on what's most important as we go through this crisis together. And so thank you very much again.
Father, I'm really delighted to be asked. Thank you for that. I will tell you, I almost never say no to a priest, and I've learned to never say no to a nun.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
there
Well,
you go.
and the reality is that I heard about you a long time ago from some of the nuns that I knew, and that knew you from your work in the community, and that was one of the connections, and why I was so, it was so easy for me to want to ask you to do this with your reputation. So
So now you know why I never say no to a nun.
So again, to all of you in the community, I want to thank you for taking your time to listen, and we wish all of you and your families a wonderful Easter season. May God bless you all.
Thank you.